Hi, this is the Chasing Justice podcast. I'm your host, Lashunda Lott, and I am a content creator at Chasing Justice. This season is all about civic engagement, and this episode is about doing our voting homework. Our guest for today is a rapper. You know him as Propaganda. Prop spent most of his childhood in a predominantly Latino neighborhood of LA. His dad was a Black Panther, and which also inspired his worldview. He went to college and graduated with degrees in illustration and intercultural studies. He taught high school for 6 years and had a hand in founding 2 charter schools in LA. Prop, how are you doing?
Man, I'm good. It looks like my video jingling. I don't know why, but I'm good. You know, I'm having a good time. You know what I'm saying?
That's
glad
good.
to be a part of this.
I'm glad too. I think this is awesome because we get to hear your words of wisdom that will be shared around the neighborhoods in our city, in this country, about voting, because we're about to vote and it's coming very soon. And so the first question I have for you is, what do you recommend when it comes to doing our voting research and homework?
You know, first of all, ignore the commercials. Like, just whatever commercials you're seeing, just ignore those. There are various websites that put out like sort of readers and understanding, and one of them I really enjoy is Ballotopia. And you could put in like your zip code, your state and your zip code, and it'll tell you about your local elections. That's another thing I would mainly focus on, is like pay closest attention to like your local elections, because the reality is like there's 300 million Americans, but there's maybe 100,000 where you are. So like you have your vote weighs more, you know, in your local things, and those are the things that are going to affect you every day. And then the other one is like, you know, use your like street smarts, use your antennas, and even if it's in the sense of like, okay, who is supporting this thing and what are their reasons? You know what I mean? It's not so much like people say, oh, I'm looking for an unbiased source. I'm like, well, those don't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone has a perspective because they're humans. So like, but just more discern, like, what is their end goal and why are they just explaining this the way that they're explaining this? And then look at the other people and say, okay, well, why are you explaining this the way you're explaining this? This is how they want to see our city look, and this is how they want to see our city look. And you're like, well, how do I want to see my city look? You know what I mean? And just and you can find the answer somewhere in between there.
The other question is, what single issue voting and its pitfalls? Yeah,
so single issue voting is that, where it's like, I have, you know, your non-negotiable, your deal breaker. It's like if you were on the apps, you was trying to date, and you was like, I don't date any left-handers. So no matter what the situation is, if this person is left-handed, it's a no-go. Well, you see how absurd that sounds. It's like there's so much more that goes into a person being a person than just being left-handed. And I don't even think the concept of a single issue exists anyway, because issues are connected. They all have to do with each other, you know. So to me, the pitfall is like, you can have your deal breaker in principle, but that just doesn't play out in what it means to exist in the world. And it just doesn't exist. Like, all issues are connected. If you focus like that, I just feel like you're in some way you're voting against your own interests by thinking of it in just those one terms.
That is good, because I would say as a Gen Zer, I have these conversations with my friends and peers about voting, and a lot of them just don't want to vote. And I think you bring it up.
I don't blame them.
I listen, I'm in agreement. I understand, and I tell them I get it.
Yeah.
But just saying just plain out no without at least trying to find the pros and the cons within it, the point of doing research and filling out the pitfalls. Not all of them are. We have single issues for sure, but what is the best thing that can reflect our neighborhood and our community with our people in it? And I think you brought up a good point with the left hand is just ridiculous. Don't let this just be the one thing
it's like,
that
I don't date
hinders
lefties,
you, right?
Like,
don't let those things hinder you.
But also, Yeah,
Yep.
and also I would say too for like the Gen Z thing, I think a lot of times when people say voting, you know, like I brought up in the beginning, you're thinking national
Yep.
rather than local. And I'm like, that I can see how you'd be like, I don't even know what we're doing. And in a lot of ways, you know, and this may sound a little privilegey, so like check me if I say this. I used to feel like this all the time. It was like whether the news or the TV said the economy was doing good or doing bad, my life was no different. Either way, I couldn't pay my rent. Whether you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
So you like, this is a good economy. What are you talking about? There's a lot of jobs. I'm like, well, that's not how it feel to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You like crime is down. I'm like, I live in South Central LA. I mean, crime may be down nationally, but is crime down here?
Yep.
And then the other way around. When people are like, you know, a lot of times that's the thing. Now, crime's everywhere. I'm like, well, you don't remember the 90s. And I'm like, if you was here for the 90s, then you like, we living on a cruise ship, y'all. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you just don't remember the 90s. You know what I mean? Or you choosing to forget. Or maybe, like I said, that's your city. You feel me? But we don't live in America. We live in our own neighborhoods. And what I'm experiencing is in my neighborhood. So to me, if like I were to communicate to Gen Z, it's like, nah, don't just think we're talking nationally. Like, I'm talking local.
Yes.
Like, what's going to affect you tomorrow when you go outside and you like, you know, like, why does your neighborhood school suck? You know what I'm saying? Well, because your neighborhood got gerrymandered.
Yep.
That's why. You know what I'm saying? Like, because all your tax dollars is going to that night school. And then you let them gerrymander them because they decided to redraw the districts and you ain't voted. You know what I'm saying? So, like, stuff like that. You'd be like, no. My neighborhood is my neighborhood. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Why one side is crazy? It's like, there's some spots in LA that are specific where, like, literally one side of the street, it's the same street, but one side is one district and the other side's the other one. Man, it's potholes and cracks and just, it's never take. The other one is pristine with like astroturf and beauty. It's just like, well, because that's zoning laws, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, that's the type of stuff that I'm saying, like think of it like that, not so much as like big national.
I definitely agree with that, because you have to be involved with your local community. Make a group chat, send a text message, or make something through email. I think that's very important so you can know what's going on. But the next question I have for you is, there is a lot of disinformation online, especially during the campaign. You can't avoid the videos that we see on a daily when you're watching YouTube or all social medias. It's going to show you.
Man.
So my question is, what are the kinds of statements that should raise fact-checking, Anthony?
Man, your antennas for fact-checking is when someone is absolutely certain. Like, that's my first one. When they're saying, well, there's no debate. He literally did. This is the worst, hyperbole. This is the worst in the history of something. I think the other one is when somebody can't cite their source, is when they're like, no, literally, people are just saying, like, oh, okay, people. I think a lot of times when people use the term they, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. Like, that's another one to be like, okay, so who's they? And if you can't tell me who they is some sort of like amorphous glob of, I'm like, well, who? Well, you can't tell me who they is. And I feel like for Gen Z, like, y'all's smarts to be like, when someone says statistics say that 10% of black people, you could go, okay, just let me find the statistic. Like, it's that simple. I'm like, I can look it up. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? So I just think, to me, like I said, so like the certainty or the, like, you know, the grandiose, like, in the history of something might feel like hyperbole, or I feel like also when something seems, some statements just seem outrageous to where, and it's just like, and I feel myself getting so mad by the statement, then I'm like, you might be trying to make me mad. Like, and that seems egregious. Like, what you're saying, if that's, immigrants are, you know, illegal immigrants are voting. I'm like, have you ever ran from the law? If you ran from the law, are you gonna go put your name and address on a paper? Like, I know I wouldn't if I'm trying to hide. Like,
Y'all not gonna
why
find
would someone here illegally? You ain't gonna find me, fam. Like, why in the world would I add myself to a federal registry? Like, just use it. That's what I mean by, like, use your antennas. Like, that don't even sound logical. You know what I mean? So just stuff like that I would say, like, just say, wow, It seems like a very diabolical statement you're saying right there.
Yes.
Let me just, what website you say you found that from?
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's just like, America's dying.biz, then you're like, all right, yeah, I don't need to believe nothing this man's blog is.
Yes. And you basically just talked about just fact checking because the device is literally right next to us. Like come on.
All the information on earth is right in your pocket.
There. Yes. And so I guess with saying that, because you brought up like the reactions of like how we can get angry so fast, like how do you charge them to react with that? What would you say?
I feel like most people, especially now, like this is probably one of the most cynical eras we've ever been in. And I think most people are responding with their it's their limbic system. They're responding emotionally, and you're probably voting emotionally. And no, you're not really interested in facts right now. What I try to do is listen to what your concern is. Like, okay, so what are you nervous about?
Yep.
What are you afraid of losing? With like you said, with Gen Z fools being like, I'm just not gonna vote. It's like, well, what you're saying is you feel like it don't matter.
Yep.
So like, I'm not even gonna try to convince you to vote. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. What you're saying is it doesn't matter. They're gonna do what they do. You feel me? And then that's what we talk about. It's like, yeah, I feel like it don't matter. Yeah, it don't matter. And I'm like, all right. So that's why I said, okay, well, what places do you have a better chance of it mattering? That's why I was like, well, let's talk about locally. You know what I'm saying? Well, that you have a chance. It matters there because it's less of y'all. You feel me? So to me, it's like, so saying stuff like that to where you're like, yeah, some stuff's out of your reach. But then at the same time, it's like, I would say on the other end of that is like, okay, but who is showing up, who do believe it matters, is the people you disagree with. They showing up. Why the schools is like burning these books and doing that stuff is because they showing up. Like, because they coming and they saying this what we want. And I also like to remind people that like politicians, the government, they're just other humans and they just want to be liked. I still picture them as like 7th graders at PE just wanting to get picked for the dodgeball game.
That's good.
And I'm like, why? I don't know you. You ain't cool. Why should you be on my team? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you need me. So like, I try to remind myself of that. Like, yo, you need me. Now, if this person has decided, which is a political strategy, that the juice ain't worth the squeeze, trying to convince me or people like me to vote for them, like to be on their team. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then you right. Because I'm like, I'm not down. I don't agree with nothing you saying. So yeah, you wasting your breath with me. You feel me? And then at that point, I'm like, I don't need to get mad. You're not gonna get under my skin. I know you're not talking to me.
Yep.
You know? But if I have a say, like, and that's the other thing I would say, going back to like the national one, you gave me an option and I'm gonna tell you my choice. And like, if your mama say, hey, you want pizza or chicken? It don't matter. You go choose what you want. It's like, well, she asked you. I'm like, well, I want chicken. Like, I mean, you asked. You know what I'm saying?
That's good. My last question for you is, after studying to vote, what other practical steps should we take for vote?
Voting's like, to me, the start. Like, you have to start. We obviously have to do more, but you got to start with the vote. And I feel like if you can do, if you could vote by mail, if you could do early voting, just do it. Like, what are you waiting for? I just think, like, consider, that's a day off work. That's, there's other things to consider. And now with just, voter fraud and stuff, like, you might actually get harassed at the voting poll, you know what I mean? And just consider that. Like, if you still feel like, you know what, I want all the smoke, then go do it. You feel me? Like, but just make your priority, take your time. Don't feel no pressure in the sense of like, you don't have to get it right. Like, I would say that too. Like, just, you don't have to get it right. Just take your time, vote what you think you do. And if there are things that you really are like, I don't feel very informed about that, that's okay. Like, I mean, you get informed, you know what I'm saying? But like, hey, like, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Like,
good.
you're you're one of 300 million, and so it's okay.
Yep.
Earth ain't gonna blow up if you click no when you meant yes. Like, it's okay.
It's not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world.
That's good. I want to say thank you so much for coming on here today. Is there any last words that you want
Honored.
to give the people?
Yeah, I would say this, that like, I think you're more, it's really the premise of even my podcast is like, you're more equipped for this than you give yourself credit for. These people are not smarter than you. They need you more than you need them. Okay. And you can use a knowledge base that you may not believe you have. Use your own logic. Don't let these people convince you because their words are bigger that they're smarter than you. Like, going back to like the gerrymandering thing. It's like, you know exactly what they're doing. That's just a weird word. It's like, no, you know what that means. You have more political power than you think you do. The fact that you can text 25 people and be like, meet me at this bar, and they come, that's political power. You have power. Okay. So like, don't sell yourself short.
That's amazing. Thank you, Prop, for doing this. We appreciate you so much.
My pleasure.
For everyone that will be seeing this, thank you so much, Prop.
Let's go. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, friends, that's a wrap on today's episode. Remember, we want to hear from you. Drop us a comment on IG or YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you haven't already, share, like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks for listening. Stay engaged, stay curious, and let's keep chasing justice together. Bye.